Sheila, what in your mind makes caregiving over the long haul so uniquely stressful, challenging? What's your opening take for the audience on sort of long haul caregiving as we call them?
I think there's a lot of things that come to mind. I think with a shorter term illness, there's kind of like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you could project what that finish line is. But with chronic conditions, you're not even sure how far how far you have to go. So that's one thing. I also think it's not just one big diagnosis or one thing. It's 1,000 little decisions along the way. So that's two things that make it different. And the last one is what I think comes up an awful lot for us is hearing that sometimes it's not about the caregiving tasks that's the hardest. It's about losing who they are, who the caregiver is, and your identity kind of starts shifting to be a totally different person than who you were before this caregiving journey started. So that's it.
Yeah, I could not agree more with all of it, but especially number three there. This idea of just getting lost in the caregiving. I think, and you're kind of hinting at this, but for me, as I look back, it was the time as this compounding effect, right? So I
Yeah.
had a really, for me personally, I found it one of the hardest things about caregiving is kind of like was just the uncertainty and sort of the day to day uncertainty. And again, mine was a dementia situation, but there's just so little black and white. And I was just kind of that left me perpetually feeling like there was this what's the next shoe to drop sort of thing.
Mhm.
And that feeling like that over a long period of time, that really compounded and got really, really, really heavy for me.
Yeah,
Um
I think that's a really good point, Matt, because I think just in general, when you think of anything, you can handle a lot of things for a shorter period of time. But when it snowballs and it's just day after day and over periods of days, months, weeks, years, it's just really hard to keep your momentum, to keep your energy, to keep your, patience, things.
yeah, and I think well, I was talking to just a friend of mine in town and they reminded me of that phrase, the other shoe to drop. And my friend he's living with cancer and he's doing well right now. Overall, it's not a great prognosis, but he and his wife are really working hard on trying to find ways to combat that feeling like there's always another shoe to drop. So, but just in general, whatever the thing is, the longer it's kind of gnawing at you, the the more difficult it gets. It's like the old pebble in a shoe type thing. Like if you're on a hike and you got a pebble in your shoe, initially it's just a pebble, and it's like you kind of don't pay it much mind, and then over time, it's just that pebble it can feel like a boulder because it's rubbing and chafing and all of that. So yeah, the time aspect, i- it's just really, it's even thinking back as we're talking about it right now. It's a real big challenge. And part of the reason we wanted to have this discussion, because there isn't like so often in these discussions, whatever we're talking about, there's a component of like, there's no single thing we can do to make that easier, but there's a lot of smaller things that we can do that can add up to make it easier. But any other thoughts? I want to sort of talk a little bit more of like on the specific challenges that come with. So we've talked about sort of the high level, like the just doing anything over a long period of time, the difficulty in that. But are there specific challenges that come to your mind that maybe are more prevalent in a long haul caregiving situation versus a short? So, like for instance, burnout is another something really specific that
Yeah.
the longer we're in a caregiving situation, the more susceptible we are to. to finding ourselves burned out at one point in time. But are there any other ideas or things that come to your mind that are kind of specific challenges that are unique to a long haul situation?
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you brought up burnout because it certainly is something that sneaks up on us. You don't realize it. Like you're just doing your thing, and all of a sudden you're like snapping at people or you wake up feeling numb and you're not like connecting the dots. I
Mm,
think another thing in that same realm that sneaks up on you is like we were mentioning earlier, losing your identity. Like kind of somewhere along the way you forget that you're the daughter or the son or the spouse, and you didn't even notice that happening. You just go into this mode where you're taking care of appointments and taking care of, health issues or behaviors or, insurance paperwork, and you kind of inch your way into this caregiver, and you lose that part of yourself that was there before. So I think both that burnout as well as losing yourself are sneaky, and if you're not
mhm.
realizing that it's going to typically happen over the long haul and address it early, it could really, really hit you hard.
Yeah. And makes the recovery, the sort of, pulling yourself out of it even more difficult, or at least it did in my experience. We have a question here that, and I just see another one coming in, but so how do you use the little bits of free moments away from it, away from caregiving and actually feel settled? When there's that rare lull, I almost feel more unsettled than when there's
Mhm.
actually a new crisis. So I wanted to read that question because it hit me in the heart and I
Yeah,
so relate to it. I want to
yeah,
save our answer though for just a couple of minutes because we're going to spend the bulk of the time here talking about tools, tips, and tricks. And that's a really, really important one to address.
awesome.
A
That
couple other sort of specific challenges. The financial strain obviously
Mhm.
can be one. There's out of pocket costs for, any caregiving experience. And the longer that goes on, obviously that, there's a compounding effect there too. And then something else that I wanted to bring up was something that I think impacts a lot of people, but people don't often talk about it. But incontinence, for one thing, when my mom became incontinent and, she was having accidents and that became a part of our daily life, and we had to figure out how to sort of limit the disruption that was putting putting in the way for us day to day. Like, that
Yeah,
was a really, for mom, it was really difficult and, an assault on her dignity in a lot of ways. For me as her caregiver, it was an emotional challenge. It was a physical challenge with the cleanup and all of that. So that's another one that came to mind. I don't know what your thoughts are on.
you I mean, that is a biggie, and I think that the thing that you don't realize, because everybody just thinks of, I think, the practical or the, dignity. But the just emotional toll on the caregiver of over time of managing incontinence is just so draining emotionally. It just saps you. Another thing that I think really fatigues us is having to make decisions. You go
Yeah.
all day long, you're moving through the whole day, and it's 5 o'clock at night and the phone rings and you need to make another decision and you're just
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I I'm tapped out. I've got nothing."
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've done a session on decision fatigue in general, like specifically, and I could not agree more. And that to me, that's related in some ways. It's decision fatigue can be different than burnout, but they're related. They work
Yeah.
for me anyway. But those are a couple good ones.
Oh, wait, I've got another one because I've spent so much time in grief recovery and helping people, and we've talked about this before, that grief comes in all kinds of, ways, and loss is loss. There's lots of different ways you could feel stress or grief. But
Mhm.
when you're caring for someone over a long period of time, there's a special, I don't want to say strange, but it's a different kind of grief. It's like
Mhm.
you're grieving so many things. You're grieving sometimes in your case, you're grieving someone who's still here, but not really with the case
Mhm.
of dementia. And then you're grieving the life you once had.
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
freedom that you once had, you're grieving the relationship that you used to have. So
Mhm.
it that's another thing that really just builds over time, and you don't unless you're paying attention and realizing, "Gosh, look at all the losses I'm
Yeah.
feeling," and acknowledging that, you know?
Yeah, agree, agree, and yeah, acknowledging is the first step. Like, we can't process it or manage those feelings until we acknowledge them, and that it seems so easy to say, but it's not always easy to acknowledge any of the emotions that we might be feeling in a caregiving experience, but especially in anticipatory grief and the sorts of grief that you're talking about there, Sheila. Agree. So we've kind of hit on a few of the big sort of macro level challenges of long-term caregiving. And we've talked about a few kind of specific challenges that are maybe a little bit more unique to caregiving over long periods of time. I want to segue and your points on grief there and sort of trying to find a way to acknowledge that is good segue. I want to spend the rest of the time on talking about like tools and
Yeah.
tips and strategies for for just managing, right? I guess and the way I would put it is like not for keeping our sense of self and like living the life that we deserve to be living while we're also caregiving over
Mhm.
a period of many years. So I want to come back to the question that was asked, and I see a few others. We'll get to those. But the question, the first question that came in. So how do you use the little bits of free moment away from caregiving to actually feel settled? And when there's
Mhm.
that rare lull, the question asker says, I almost feel more unsettled than when there's actually a new crisis.
Yeah.
So how would you answer that?
I do think it's unique to every person. You will find the thing that works for you, but I will say that you can't go right from caregiving 24/7 and then say, "Now I'm gonna start taking a break," and just expecting to feel better as soon as you step away. So my, sort of roundabout way of answering this question is take small steps, find the thing that you know makes you feel better. Is it spending time with your kids? Is it spending time with your pet? Is it going for some exercise? Is it getting some sunshine? Whatever that thing is, and keep practicing it. Because
Mhm,
the more you practice it, the more your mind and body are going to be like, okay, this is my time to do this. And I'm just telling you that we practice caregiving and staying at, 100%, and we never practice this letting go. So it's reasonable that when you try to let go, you can't, but it's only
mhm,
because you haven't been doing enough of it. And it's just small steps. I
mhm,
mean, minutes. Start with seconds if you need to. Find that
mhm.
thing, if it's deep breathing and all the, kind of that sort of thing, or going for a run or whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah. I'm really glad you used the word practice in that answer, Sheila, because that's really what it is. And I'd be the first to say that I did not that well, let me put it this way, because I have no regrets. I did the best I could when I was caregiving.
Yeah.
But if I find myself in a caregiving situation again, that this will be one of the things that I do differently from the start. I will I will make it a point to try and practice. And to your point, even if it's 2 minutes
Yep.
or 5 minutes, and I'm not even out of the house, I'm in the other room, or I'm on the front porch, or wherever, right? The intentional like effort to try and practice it does take practice to as you said, but it also like, I felt very guilty. I felt unsettled, so I totally relate to the question
Yeah.
asker, but I also felt guilty when I wasn't with mom. And
Yep.
as we know, Sheila, we say guilt is a liar, and that is true, but I still felt guilty. So the
Yeah.
practicing taking that 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is, it also helps with that. Like, you're building that muscle. I would be building the muscle to say, okay, I can come out in the front yard and just sit for 5 minutes and not feel guilty about it. Like the more you practice it, the less guilt you'd feel. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And maybe
So
when you're going out there and you're feeling that guilt, your mantra is that true? since we're no guilting is lying to us, saying you're wasting your time, you didn't do enough, you failed, you lost your temp, whatever the thing is that you
Mhm.
did, is that true? Like, did I do something on purpose that, am I not doing the best I can? Whatever that thing is that's gonna make you slow down and realize that your head is telling you all kinds of things and you don't always have to believe it or listen to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Deal.
Agreed, agreed. And this relates to something else that you probably think I sound like a broken record, Sheila, but I truly believe this. So as caregivers, we're often told like, okay, you got to take care of yourself so you can take care of your mom or your spouse or whoever you're taking care of. And yes, that's true. That is true. But there's a more important reason that you need to take care of yourself. And and this is my opinion, but that is because you deserve it. You deserve to have those moments. You
Yeah.
deserve to have that time. You deserve to not lose yourself in your caregiving experience. It doesn't mean you love or care for the person you're caring for any less. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're doing a bad job. It's actually all it means is that your health and well-being as a caregiver matters every bit as much as the health and well-being of the person you're caring for. That is true. That's fact. It's very hard to believe and see when we're in the midst of caregiving, right?
Yeah.
It's so hard but but this is something else that I would sort of, maybe it's off to the side, but like if I were starting out again in a long haul caregiving situation, that I would like find a way to get myself to truly understand that and believe that. Because
Yeah.
once you do, it doesn't mean you'll never feel guilty, but
Right.
it'll make practicing taking these moments and practicing swatting away the guilt, it'll make it that much easier. Right.
And
So
something that I just heard the other day, which I thought was so good from a caregiver, is they got to the realization that this was important because the question they asked themselves when they stepped away is this sustainable? I
mm,
loved that. I
yeah.
loved that
Mm,
because your answer is going to be no. You
yeah.
will not be able to keep up the mental gymnastics, the physical, the all the things that you're tying together and keeping everybody happy from the doctor to your loved one to your sibling or whatever whoever's in there. It's not sustainable. So you need to take this break.
Agreed. And I would so I would and I see a bunch of questions, so I just want to make this point and then I want to get to the questions in the remaining time.
Sure.
But these are, when it comes to tools, and I think that what did we name the session, Sheila? It was tools for the long haul caregiver, right? Caregiving and chronic illness. So in my opinion, I think you agree, you may add to it, but I'm pretty sure you agree here, and correct me if I'm wrong. But the most important tools we can have are the things that we're just talking about, right? An understanding that our health and well-being is as important as the person we're caring for. An understanding that guilt lies to us, and our need to practice sort of walking walking that walk, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And taking 5 minutes, then
Yeah.
10 minutes, and taking regular time for yourself. It's not easy, but like practicing, you have to. It's like practicing anything else. You have to build the muscle. You have to build the habit. But those are the most fundamental tools, in my opinion, across
100%.
the board that will, if understood and sort of, I don't want to say abided by, it's not right quite the right way to say it, but if they're abided by, like they will result in a, a more balanced and fulfilling, not always happy, but a more balanced and fulfilling caregiving experience. Meaning
Yeah.
you'll be able to
Yeah.
care and live.
Yeah, and if you can get those 3 things down, then everything that you act on after that falls out of that. So if you agree with that, the guilt is lying and you need to take care of yourself, then you could start building a team for support. Then
Yes.
you could start dropping things off your list that you think are so important but really aren't. So but
I
those
love it.
3 things, I love that. That's really important and all
Yeah.
actions follow it.
And I love the way you're saying, like, there's like a hierarchy, I guess, in
Mhm.
terms of tools, right? And maybe at the top are those three things. And then, building a team, crucial, right? Like
Yep.
the most
But you
important,
won't build a team
one of
unless you get to that point.
correct.
Thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Bingo. Bingo. Okay. Few questions here. So my mom has vascular dementia and is refusing to take her meds. We have an auto pill dispenser with an alarm. She takes pills out to stop stop the beeping, but doesn't take them. We need her to take her meds. I would to this question asker, I lived this as well. Very difficult. I think this question like really I'll follow up with a specific resource after the session, but also this suits is really well suited for one-on-one work with one of our care advocates.
Yeah.
So I think there's a number of things we can help you think through there, and sort of a number of things to try. But I think it's a tough scenario, one that we work with people on often, and one I think would really be well suited for one-on-one conversation.
Agree. Yeah, agree, Matt.
Okay. How about this one, Sheila? My mom reminds me not to treat her like a child when I have to constantly remind her to wash her hands, eat healthy, not sweets, etc., etc. It's a
Mhm.
constant battle. Amen to that. Could feel you 100% question asker on that. But Sheila, what would you say to that?
I think there's a little give and take there. I think you could pause yourself and say, is this battle worth it? Like, whatever the topic is like, how important is it in this moment that your mom eats this piece of fruit rather than that piece of candy? And I don't want to like put a blanket on it because I know there's health issues and diabetes and other things, but I want you to just like pause and say, how important is this in this moment in the big scheme of things? And the other thing is, depending on the situation and how far along she's advanced, it's all the things we talk about with distractions and reframing and meeting them
Mhm.
in a different place or just changing the way that you position your answer or your request. For instance, some of the things where we talk about is with dementia patients and them not wanting to shower. Sometimes it's about changing the way you say it. Don't say the word shower. So let's get cleaned
Mhm.
up,
Yeah.
so little things like that.
Yeah, and I lived this also. I was given a phrase that really helped me by someone along the way, and they said, "Matt, you have to collaborate, you can't mandate."
I love it.
So, that really helped me. I don't know, something maybe about the alliteration or I don't know, is
Yeah,
that alliteration? I don't know. But anyway, but just
yeah.
the simple the simplicity of that helped me sort of and again, it wasn't perfect, but helped me sort of evolve how I was approaching mom, let's say, to get her to do all those things. And again, I totally relate to the question asker. So another question, can you share some thoughts on dealing with healthcare when caregiving? Healthcare is almost more of a pain than the illness itself. Another question to which I say amen. It's tough.
Yeah.
It is tough. I'd wanna better understand what some of the specific healthcare challenges are. I think there are some fundamentals that we typically recommend, um, that are sort of meant to proactively smooth things a little bit. But I think this is another case, Sheila. Do you agree where one-on-one conversation could be really helpful?
I could give just a couple of I mean, if we're talking about the healthcare system or understanding the health condition, I'm not sure exactly what the topic is, but one thing that I'm always asking caregivers to do is to be persistent. Ask your doctor to translate what they just said. Tell them to repeat something if you to understand it. And if you're not getting the service or the feedback that you expect, call. Keep calling. Be that person that keeps calling to find the answer. I'm not sure if that's addressing some of the issues, but I think people are often afraid, I don't want to be that person that.
Yeah. Yeah. Appeals, untrained staff who
Right.
lie, they attempt to gaslight me. I'm sorry you're going through that. Like I said, I think, I will follow up with, some resources
Yeah.
sort of geared towards the additional information you provided, question asker, but I do think a one-on-one conversation could be helpful also because some of these things are no matter how well equipped you are, like the more they have, they're cutting. That's how it felt to me, cutting and seeing this person use the word gaslight, that
Mhm.
brings me back to a couple difficult situations with my mom, and there's no, unfortunately, sort of snap of the finger we can do, but I think there's some things that we can, ways we can help you be a little bit proactive to head some of that stuff off before it gets to you. But Sheila, we're 1 minute over. Time flies when we're having fun.
Much
All the
here.
questions here. Any final sort of parting thoughts for the audience?
Think that just in general, if I were starting again, as I have been through a lot of this myself, I would be starting now to make more connections, people to help physically, logistically, financially, emotionally. And something we hear a lot is that people don't realize that asking for help isn't just all the things you think of. Sometimes you just need someone to listen and not try to fix anything, but just someone who will
Mm,
understand and listen to you. So ask for that help too.
I love that. You nailed that one, Sheila. That's so true, especially in a long-term
Yeah.
caregiving situation. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Sheila. Thank you all
Take
for being here. Bye
take
now.